Ron Schmidt, served the City of Sparks, Ward 5 since June 11th, 2001. Classic car fans descend on Sparks every August for a week of classic rock and roll, great food, and beautiful machines. Hot August Nights is an iconic Sparks event that brings thousands of people and millions in revenue to the region each year after year. After a run of close to 3 decades, Hot August Nights is a huge success for the City of Sparks. The nostalgic celebration of mid-century cars and music generates an economic impact around $250 million for the region. In 2015, the event alone brought 500,000 people into town from 40 different states. Many booked hotel rooms for 4-night stays. An increase in traffic helps many local businesses, from auto parts stores to restaurants. There are many changes after the 2015 event, to include a new 3-year agreement, which gives the official hosting of the kickoff event to Virginia City. Now, every year, the Mayor of Sparks is proud to choose his favorite cars at Hot August Nights. With hundreds of beautiful cars and trucks to choose from, it's never easy. This year, Mayor Gino Martini and his wife, Ruth, allowed us to tag along as they took on the very difficult task of choosing one car.
Here we are with the Mayor's City of Sparks Award, and our own Mayor Gino Martini coming out there to congratulate our winner of this prestigious award.
And that's it for this installment of Spotlight on Sparks. I'm Adam Mayberry. Thanks for watching. And be sure to stay in touch with the city on Facebook and Twitter and the city's own mobile app. And remember, it's happening here.
Even if no one in your home smokes, secondhand smoke can be closer than you think. Secondhand smoke from a neighbor's apartment can enter your home through air vents, through light fixtures, and even through cracks in the walls and the floors. Secondhand smoke is toxic, especially to children. Protect your family.
I have 3 tests next week. I'm going to be studying all weekend. Ugh. Are you studying tonight? We can meet up and study together. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. What time? I work until 6.
Okay, sounds good. Just text me after.
Okay. No!
There is no text, tweet, or call that's worth a life.
One pedestrian death is one too many.
Look up.
And look out for each other.
Call to order the Sparks City Council meeting for 9/12/16 with a roll call, please.
Feeney, absent. Council members Ratty. Here. Lawson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bybee. Here. Schmidt.
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Eiding. Here. City Manager Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you'd all stand for our invocation speaker, Pastor Omar Palmer from the Sparks Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thanks for coming.
Oh, certainly. Thanks for having me. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we are so glad that on this day we can come before you, giving you thanks for giving us the privilege to be of service for this great city of Sparks. Today especially, Lord, we highlight a number of things, and I want to mention to you and ask that you accept the new chief, fire chief, in your care. Give him wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Now, Lord, for the rest of the meeting, we ask that you be with all those who will be a part of it. May you allow them to transact the business that will win your approval. And we thank you for your presence here and for your leadership. Now we just turn the city over to you in your hands. Continue to do a great work and bless those who lead. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. If you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Chief Garrison, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open up the public comment right now. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time, fill out a card, please. We'll get you up there. I do have one card. Miss Anonymous, come on up. How are you? Good, thank you. Good,
You.
I'm great, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As you know, I'm calling myself anonymous because of the retaliation we survivors of domestic violence are facing. SB 27 in the 2013 Nevada legislature was passed even though the Attorney General testified that it not be passed. SB 27 became NRS 41.0338, I believe, and it was all new language that any person who is involved in the destruction of child abuse evidence, which is an illegal activity, will be represented by the Attorney General for the state of Nevada. The reason the Attorney General testified against passing that legislation is because she was being sued and knew of the statewide destruction of child abuse evidence, even in the city of Sparks municipal courts. So it took us survivors of domestic violence quite a long time, but we finally got the Attorney General to respond to what the state was going to do about destroying child abuse evidence. And the Attorney General responded last week and is claiming immunity. Now, anyone who knows NRS 41 knows that immunity for the state of Nevada was waived. Absolute immunity doesn't exist. The only kind of immunity that the Attorney General can claim is what is called qualified immunity. The Attorney General has to go before a court and try to plead that all of the people involved in destroying child abuse evidence want immunity. Immunity is a red flag and should concern every member of this board because immunity admits guilt. Of course, you all have known about the destruction of child abuse evidence, or in the municipal court, more appropriately called the destruction of court cases in which children were injured. The plea or argument by the Attorney General for qualified immunity is not only admitting guilt, but is also admitting that once they learned of the destruction of child abuse evidence, they did nothing about it. So we're just coming before you asking to be put on the agenda again so that we can get this, get a resolution to the municipal courts destroying court cases in which injuries to children are being destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at this time? Okay, we'll move on. Agenda, approve the agenda. Anybody want to move anything?
Didn't you want to move?
I do want to move 7.2 ahead of 7.1. They have to be somewhere early, so we'll get them out of here if there's no objection. Looking for a motion? Mr. Lawson?
Move to approve the agenda, except as otherwise noted by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay. Number 6. Consideration of possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting of August 22nd, 2016. Any deletions? Ms. Ratty?
Move to approve.
Ms. Bybee?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further violations? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. I don't know where that came from. Okay, we're going to move on to announcements, presentation, and recognition items. 7.2 would be proclamation for Constitution Week, and we have you ladies right there. Would you come on down, please? Just the one of you? Have a seat right there. Thank you.
I'll read the proclamation. Whereas September 17th marks 229th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it's fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas 2016 is the 61st anniversary of the Constitution Week, the celebration of the Constitution that was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1955. The Daughters of the Revolution petitioned Congress to set aside September 17th through 23rd to be dedicated to the observance of Constitution Week. The resolution was adopted by the U.S. Congress and signed into law August 7th, 1956 by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, therefore, I, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week.
Thank you all so much for the proclamation and helping us celebrate this anniversary of our Constitution.
Yeah.
My name is Linda Simmons.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, 7.1 is swearing in and badge pinning ceremony for our new fire chief, Christopher Maples. I know you can't see from the back of the room, but we have an impressive display of fire chiefs here, and there's 8, soon to be 8, retired chiefs. And you said 65 years of experience sitting right there in front of us?
That's my understanding, sir.
My gosh, you guys are great, and the uniforms still fit. It's great. It's a good deal. Christopher, come on up front and sit right there. I want to read a little something I have here, and then we'll get on with the ceremony. Okay, Chris Maples started his career with the Sparks Fire Department as a firefighter in November 1995. He was promoted to operator in December 2001, captain in January 2007, and battalion chief in October of 2011. In August 2013, he was appointed division chief and is currently responsible for the fire department's training and administration division. Chris Maples has a bachelor's degree in natural resource management from the University of Nevada, Reno, and an associate's degree in fire science from the Truckee Meadows Community College. He served in the United States Navy, From 1976 to 1980, we just found out we were both in the Navy. Different, I was in there quite a bit sooner than you were, but still. In the Navy from 1976 to 1980, and the Nevada Air National Guard from 1980 to 1984. I'll say this, Chief Maples is the 12th chief of the Sparks Fire Department, and congratulations, and we'll get on with the swearing-in ceremony. Say your name.
I, Christopher L. Maples,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government of the United States
the Constitution and government of the United States
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada
against all enemies,
whether
domestic or foreign, and that I will bear true faith, allegiance, and loyalty to the same, any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding, pursuant to Section 1.110 of the Sparks City Charter.
Pursuant to Section 1.110 of the Sparks City Charter,
I swear and affirm that I am not under any direct or indirect obligation to vote for, appoint, or elect any person to any office, position, or employment in the city government, and that I will well and faithfully perform all of the duties of the office of Fire Chief of the City of Sparks, County of Washoe, State of Nevada, on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations.
Obviously, I don't have to kneel down anymore. Every time there's been a formal ceremony like this, Brian has given the honors, and so I think it's fitting that he did it for last time.
It's all yours, Chief.
Okay, thank you. As you can probably tell, I have a number of my family members here today, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce them to you. You've already met Brian. As you can see, he's a member of the fire service. He's a firefighter paramedic for the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. His wife, Ashley, is a nurse supervisor at Renown. She was on duty today and couldn't make it, but their son, my first grandson, Harlan, is in the audience today, and I don't know if you can see, but he is dressed for the occasion.
He's got a tie on.
His chief's outfit. Yeah. Next is my son, Matthew. Matt is a habitat specialist for the Department of Wildlife. His wife is Dr. Sarah Maples. She's finishing her last year of residency. My father, Robert, is a retired associate superintendent with the school district. And last but not least, my wife, Roxanne. When I decided to make a career change at age 37 and become a fireman. I was concerned that Roxanne was going to say, oh, come on, next week you'll want to be an astronaut or a cowboy or something like that. But she didn't, so we had a family meeting and discussed it with the kids, and with their encouragement, I decided to pursue my dream. And so I can honestly say that Roxanne and I have been together 35 years. And I wouldn't be where I am today without her.
Congratulations, Chief. Beautiful family.
So I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce or reintroduce you to our former fire chiefs, starting with Chief Farr, who led the department from 1951 to 1976, a period of 25 years. I believe you were the longest serving chief. Okay. Next, we have Chief Young. His wife, Maddie, is with him. Chief Young led the department from 1976 to 1990. Next, Chief Irwin, who was the one that hired me. Thank you very much for that, Chief. Followed by Chief Layton and Chief Poole, my 1st Battalion Chief, Chief Flock, and last but not least, Chief Garrison, who I've had the pleasure of serving under for the last 3 years. So I would like to now address a couple of, I forgot. I also want to recognize all of our current and former employees who are here today. Without their support and assistance, we couldn't do the things that we do. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. So now.
Throw something at us now?
No. I have just a few words, and I'd like to address the council, the city manager, and my fellow fire department employees. First, I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to lead the men and women of the Sparks Fire Department. It's an honor and a privilege, and I know that without their support and commitment, a fire chief can't be effective. I'll be the 12th fire chief that the city of Sparks has had since the department was founded in 1905. Earlier this summer, I took a class at the National Fire Academy, and when I mentioned that we, the city of Sparks, had a tradition of promoting their fire chiefs from within, I realized that we're pretty unique in that regard. And I think that's a testament to several things. Number one, we hire quality employees. Secondly, those employees are dedicated to the fire service and the department. And last but not least, we've had longstanding support from the leadership of the city. I look forward to being your next fire chief. I look forward to the challenges and opportunities that I know lie ahead. And I'm confident that as a department, we can meet those challenges and continue to respond to the needs of our community as we have for the last 111 years. So thank you all very much.
You know, Chief, this council, I know the mayor is very proud of the fact that we promote within. Same thing with the police department. I mean, this is, it's a testament to the kind of people we hire, and we appreciate everything you folks have done for us. The firefighters back there, I mean, it's a great group of people, and we stack them up against anybody in the country, honestly.
I think we can.
Mr. Lawson.
And Chief, I would say congratulations. What a cool deal for our family-oriented community to have 9 out of 12 chiefs here today living with us. Obviously, I'll never be chief, so I'm not going to live near as long as you guys, but man, oh man, what a great dedication. You guys to the city, thank you very much. And you're just next in line, you got some big shoes to fill there, sir.
I know I do. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Bybee.
I'd like to echo my congratulations. I think you're going to do an amazing job, and you follow in footsteps of just some incredible men who have served the city, a city of which I'm almost lifetime resident, and I did grow up with Chief Farr as our fire chief. When I was a little girl living here, he knows my mom and dad really well, and so to really kind of see where we've come and the future is bright. And thank you all for all of your service to the city of Sparks. It means a lot because public safety is one of our top jobs that we need to do here at the city, so thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
barbecue.
Yeah, I hate to speak and run, but we're going to go take some photos.
Thank you. I know. Is Edon here? I don't see them. What's that? Oh, there he is. I think that is commendable. That is.
Because he said that's everyone consecutive chief fire chief labels.
Yeah.
The only ones not here were the ones before.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Okay, we'll move on. What amazing display of the city of Sparks right there. That's just it's too much. Believe me. We move on to 7.3. We have a presentation from Edon, but I do not see anybody from Edon. So what we'll do is, if they show up, we'll go back to that if they do show up. So let's move to number 8, consent items. Anybody want to pull one? Looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson?
Move to approve items 8.1 and 8.2.
Looking for a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Number 9, general business. 9.1, consideration of and possible approval of the mayor's recommendation of the appointment of Diane Vanderwell to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission from the following potential appointees: George Camerata, James Fewins, Frank Peterson, and Diane Vanderwall. Get a motion on this, please? Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to confirm the mayor's recommendation of Diane Vanderwell to the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission to a term which expires on June 30th, 2018.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Lawson is second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. 9.2, consideration of possible award of a professional services contract, AC 5291, to Charles Abbott Associates Incorporated for building permit plan review services. Mr. Martini.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. John Martini, Community Services Director. Before you today for your consideration and possible approval of a contract to Charles Abbott and Associates for a value not to exceed $250,000. As the council will recall, we have been utilizing contract plan review services now. This is I believe our third year. We are very happy with our relationship with Charles Abbott and wish to extend it. I think, as I've mentioned to council before, we have had an open position for a senior plans examiner now for about 9 months. We have had no applications for that position that are qualified. Charles Abbott and Associates has kindly placed a very senior level plans examiner here at the city of Sparks under contract, working with our staff day in and day out, and we wish to continue that relationship through this contract. I'm available if you have any questions, and hope you approve it.
Okay, questions or comments?
Got a few plans stacking up.
I think this has worked out great for us.
I appreciate the council's support for this.
Okay, looking for motion, Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve to continue the professional services with Charles Abbott.
Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Continuing an existing contract, or this is a new contract altogether?
This will be a brand new contract
That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure
for
that-
this fiscal year.
So we'll have two contracts in, one with the building plans review, normal stuff, then this one for a supervisory position, correct?
We are doing them under one contract.
You're doing them under one contract?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's where confusion, because it was continuation of contract, but then you said it's not a continuation, it's a new contract.
This is a new contract for fiscal year 17.
No, I don't think you do.
It is, if I.
Continuation of the services under a new contract.
Correct. If I brought confusion to the council, I apologize. I wanted to point out that they have placed a contract plans reviewer here to work with us.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because I heard two different things. I want to make sure what.
Ms. Ratty, your name's up here too.
No, I was just.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, John. 9.3, consideration possible approval of amendment to 19 Regional Road Impact Fee Capital Contribution Front-End Agreements, CCFEA, for the extension of credit expiration dates. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the council. Again, John Martini, Community Services Director. If the council will recall, on May 9th of this year, I came forward with Julie Masterpool from the Regional Transportation Commission with an amendment to the fifth edition of the General Administrative Manual that governs how regional road impact fees are done here locally. That amendment addressed an issue with regard to the extension of expiration dates under our current CCFEAs, which are capital contributing front-ending agreements, which set the terms of how much credit is awarded to the developers. The council did approve that amendment to the General Administrative Manual. As Julie told you all here at that meeting, the procedures under that amendment were basically for an all-call, a date certain for developers to apply to the RTC to have their credits extended by 10 years. That was done in our North Benefit District now, particularly for Sparks. We had 19 credit holders come forward and request extension of those credits. The RTC board passed or approved these extensions on August 19th of 2016. If the council has any questions, Jeff Hale from the RTC is here as well. And that concludes my presentation. Council is recommending approval.
You know, John, we did approve this actually a year or so ago. And then it went to Reno. The county and Sparks approved it, but it went to Reno and there was a hold up there.
Correct.
So we're just coming back around, and we now know we have 19.
Yeah, so we approved it, probably 18 months ago.
Yeah,
there was a lag as Reno had asked for further information. Out of that came some changes, so we had to go back and reapprove the first amendment, amendment number 1 to the fifth edition of the General Administrative Manual. That was back in May, and then they went through the procedures. We did have 19 credit holders come forward and request extension.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
So just for clarification for the public, that we're not extending an additional 10 years from what we already approved. We're going back to now approve these particular 19 credit holders.
What the council
that we did not know about before.
No, we knew about them. What the council is in fact approving, for 19 of these credit holders, they have credits that are set to expire either now or in the future. Approval today will extend each of those individual CCFEA credit expiration dates, whether it's today or 5 years from now, by 10 years.
So it won't be a 20-year extension, which would be suggested by doing this twice.
Correct.
It's a single one-time,
It's a one-time only
10-year
offer.
Over with. Okay.
Yep.
Just want to clarify.
Okay. Ms. Ratty?
Just to clarify further, just make sure I'm tracking. 18 months ago, we approved the program. Today, we're approving the extension for these 19 individual credit holders.
Correct.
Okay, great.
In accordance with the amendment to the General Administrative Manual approved in May.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect.
Ms. Bivey?
So just to make sure I'm clear, the 10 years, the 10 years is 10 years from now for everyone, regardless of when their credits would have expired, or it adds 10 years. If they have 2 years left, does it add 10 years beyond that, or are we starting from today, everyone will have 10 years from today?
So for the 19 credit holders that came forward and asked for this, each of them are bound by the terms of the original CCFEA, which was a contract between the RTC, the developer, and in our case, the city of Sparks. There is a date in there that said when the credits will expire. They're all different depending on when that original CCFEA was approved. The old program said within 20 years, the credits would expire. So the actual expiration dates for each of these 19 are different, but they're bound by the contract they signed. By approving this today, whatever the contract said, you will add 10 years to.
Which would be different possibly for all 19?
It will be different for all 19.
That's all I just wanted to be clear on. Okay, thank you.
There were very few that were expiring this year, but there were some.
There were, 2016 was the smallest amount.
Right.
There were a lot of credits issued in the 2007, 2008, 2009 boom years, actually back to 06.
Yeah.
Add 20 years to those. That's when the bulk of those credits were set to expire.
Right. Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion. Ms. Spivey.
I move to approve the amendment to 19 regional road impact fee capital contribution front-ending agreements for the extension of credit expiration dates as submitted by staff.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. And thanks, John. You know, we all know what a long process this has been, and I'm glad we finally got it done.
This should be the end of it
I hope
for
so,
now.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's Jeff's fault. Okay, we'll move on to 9.4, and then we'll get Mr. Kazmierski up here. 9.4, consideration and possible approval of a contract AC 5290 for storage of non-project water among the United States of America Bureau of Reclamation, Washoe County Water Conservation District, City of Reno, and the City of Sparks. All righty.
I can make that turn on. Okay.
You know how to do it, Andy.
Yep. Look at Teresa and she'll take care of me.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Smith, members of council. For the record, Andy Hummel, Utility Manager for the City of Sparks. This item before you today is a storage contract between cities of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County Water Conservation District, and the United States Bureau of Reclamation. Basically what this contract will allow us to do is to store the water that we acquired under the Water Quality Settlement Agreement, and then also put into the river as required by Section 1E4 of the Truckee River Operating Agreement. It's about 8,000 acre-foot total of water. Allows us flexibility as to when we would call that water and bring it down the river rather than when Mother Nature would have it in the river and take it when we get it. So helps us to meet the water quality priorities that were established in both of those programs. There's no annual storage fee in that contract that was laid out in the Water Quality Settlement Agreement originally, that we won't pay for the storage. We will pay for the contract administration costs that the Bureau of Rec would have annually. We're estimating those are about $1,000 a year or less, so it should be a very minor cost. That concludes my presentation. Happy to address any questions.
Questions or comments? You know, this TROA agreement we finally finalized allow us 3 times the storage we have upstream.
Yes.
So it means this is a big deal. We'll have a lot of water for this area. And to add on to that, we owned half of the water rights in Donner Lake.
Yep.
Now we own all the water rights in Donner Lake.
Yep.
So we're in pretty good shape going into the future. So, okay, Mr. Lawson.
I move to approve the contract for storage of non-project water among the United States America Bureau of Reclamation. That's a mouthful by itself.
Sorry.
Thanks, Andy.
Ms. Ratty.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move back to 7.3, presentation, EDON Sparks Council update. Mr. Kazmierski, how are you? Welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Mike Kazmersky, President and CEO of EDON, Economic Development Authority of Western Nevada, just to give you an update on what's going on and really answer any questions you may have. So I'll get through the update fairly quickly and really offer you some time if you have any specific questions on what's going on. The good news is things continue to do well. It's a real pleasure to work with the council. Each and every one of you is involved in economic development in some way, and I want to thank you for that. We can't do it without your support, and I can tell you your staff is first class. The city manager is on the executive committee for EDON and is involved in a lot of the executive committee work, and of course, Councilmember Lawson represents the city on the board as well. So with that as kind of a warm-up, I don't think anyone would doubt that the region is in change, in a process of change. It's really a new Reno Sparks. Job attraction has been something we focused on, but it is a record-setting as you look back over the past. Rebranding, we are thought of differently than we were 5 years ago. There's no question about that. The downtown, and when I say downtown, it's the downtown areas. Both downtowns are in pretty rapid revitalization. Just think back 5 years to where we are now and project ahead 5 years, and it's pretty exciting where we're going. The housing boom is driven by real demand. You hear people still talking about boom bust. Boom bust happens when you don't have an underlying value to support the growth. What we have is real jobs coming in to support the growth we're seeing. The entrepreneurial ecosystem is on fire. It was exciting to see Burning Man in town here the last couple of, over the last weekend or so, and that kind of entrepreneurial energy connect with what's happening in our region. Connectivity overall on the economic development side has been phenomenal, and then certainly Tesla and Switch have been exciting and a catalyst for a lot of things above. Just a reminder, we focus on primary jobs or base jobs, so it's the difference between a Tesla or a Microsoft and a Walmart or a restaurant. One job brings wealth in from outside the region, one moves the wealth around. Both are important, but without the primary jobs, you don't have the kind of growth that you need. Our stool you've seen 100 times, I hope, focuses on attraction, retention, entrepreneurial growth with a new focus on workforce development. We have got to develop our workforce and attract workforce if we're going to continue to do great things. Our numbers here, you can see, in fact, I think I went too far. No, that's right. Our numbers here, you can see the goal for 3,000 we exceeded this past year. Our 3,000 goal was the highest number of jobs we've ever announced in EDON, and we exceeded that again this year with 3,200. So we continue to see a move in the right direction. This does not include Tesla numbers. Tesla numbers obviously skew the data from a regional perspective, but you can see our average at the very bottom, 2008 to 2011, we were a little over 800. So we are really continuing to see not only growth, but an improvement on growth year over year. And it's because of our prospect visits. When we get prospects that visit our community, the closure rate's very high, and it's because we work as a team. We bring in everyone possible in the region to help talk to the prospects and help them understand why this is a great place for business, it's a great place to raise a family, it's a great place to grow. And government is a very, very important part of that equation, and we work closely with your staff and you oftentimes as well to help with our prospect activity. A lot of people say it's all about Tesla, but if you look at the bottom where Tesla announced, there was a whole lot going on here before Tesla showed up, and it continues to be very strong. Our goal is 9 to 10 prospects in a month. That keeps us very, very busy. A prospect visit comes into town, we've got to show and tell them the entire region, essentially. Real estate, university, what they can do for workforce, tax benefits, everything that we can show them on why they need to come here. And when we get 9 or 10 in a month, it's busy, and you can see we're averaging this so far this year 9.8, and that number will go up because last month we had 14, which was not fun. Specific projects and Sparks over the last year and a half or so, you can see some good projects there, and I don't know why Switch is on there, but it's interesting. We have had more and more of a fallout from what's happening at TRI as companies look at what's the nearest place to set up office, what's the nearest place to grow and be connected. And I think that connectivity between TRI and Sparks will continue to enhance the development as we go forward. Pending announcements. This is exciting in that are, a lot of people say, well, okay, we're hitting the plateau, what's going on? And the reality is, as you know, we had an announcement a couple of weeks ago, we have an announcement next Monday. There are several others, and these pending announcements are companies that are on the position where they're getting ready to announce. And as they get ready to announce, obviously they look at workforce and everything else. They're very much in the pipeline for the near term, and then as you start looking out 3 months to 9 months, these are companies that they visited us more than once, and we're going back and forth on it, and we think we've got a pretty good chance of winning most of these. And again, you look at that bottom number and go, 3,600 is a lot, especially since the most we ever get in a year is about 3,200. But some of those big ones come and go, and it may kick it out for a year or whatever. The bottom line is our pipeline is full, and we fully expect to exceed our job attraction number for this fiscal year of 3,200. This is just a quick, as we look back over the last 5 years, we've assisted in locating 124 companies. It's, just how is it broken out? Oftentimes people think everything's going out to TRI, and the reality is they're a small part of this regional economic growth and really a small part of the companies we work with. Everyone wants to talk about Tesla and the big job count out there, and obviously that is a big deal, and it affects a lot of other things. But we're dealing with companies now that have either full or part-time. When I say part-time, they're working with Tesla and other companies, so they want a presence in the region, and they say, we really don't want to be a TRI. So having other industrial options for them is very, very important. And that really brings up the point as we look ahead to how are we adding to our industrial land in the region that may not be a TRI. And I know there are plans moving in that direction, but it will be very helpful to have options for those companies. Of course, Tesla is in and of itself a huge win for the region, helps us in a lot of ways, and they are ramping up their hiring. So we're going to start to see a lot more, and you already see it. Think back a year or two, you didn't see any Teslas in town, and now they're everywhere. Especially if you go to certain places. We're starting to see that kind of move into the region by the engineers, by more and more of their employees, and then as they start to hire people in the region as well. So you will see the ramp-up curve on Tesla, and if you heard the Elon Musk announcement that he now expects about 10,000 workers in northern Nevada, that's well above the 6,500 number. We are going to see more and more of an impact on the region from a Tesla employee perspective. And certainly Switch is a great addition to our region. I mean, a $6.4 million data center, largest in the world. And again, when you start talking about putting this region on the map, that helps us put the region on the map from a technology and attraction of technology workers perspective. So a lot of great things. The Superloop certainly is helpful as well. The companies are coming from a lot of places. Not that long ago, it was almost all or vast majority California. Now it's still California, and California is still very much in the mix, but you can see it's from everywhere. And it's not, it's actually a minority now in California. So a lot of great growth from across the country and even internationally. And again, manufacturing continues to be the lead. We pushed as a region very hard to attract manufacturing here 5 years ago with our strategic plan, and that has been very successful. We continue to have success in the manufacturing area. We are working very hard to meet the workforce needs of these manufacturers, which is going to require us to put a lot of emphasis on workforce development as well. This is an exciting chart if you haven't seen it before. If you look back, these are just snapshots of 2 years. The economic hotspot indicators in 2013, we were ranked 97th in the nation. We're now ranked 4. And that doesn't really reflect the Tesla impact and a lot of the other things. So I would fully expect us to move up that list when they do the 2017 evaluation. And then mid-sized cities, area development rankings. This is a fun one because from a mid-sized city perspective, we're ranked number 1. And again, all this is MSA. They say Reno, but it's the MSA. We work together as an MSA. What we really liked out of this report is that the entrepreneurial growth is one of the hottest games in town. To be able to talk about our entrepreneurial ecosystem is huge because we've got to be able to grow the jobs of the future here, not just continue to bring jobs in. So this was a pretty exciting report, and clearly we ranked very well from a national perspective. So we bring them in, but we got to keep them here, and Nancy McCormick and her team do that, working with you wherever possible to help the companies we have stay here succeed here, grow here. And so that's what really her team does. We go out and work with, resolve their problems. Oftentimes, when they're bumping into brick walls, we know the right people to call to help them get past that. And then on visits, what's interesting is we talk about all this new company growth, but 85% of the companies we have here are planning to grow as well. And they're adding employees as well. So it's a combination of things that really will drive our economy as we go forward. All this leads to in my view, the number one challenge, and that's workforce. We will run out of people in the next year or two. We don't have enough people to meet all these jobs. Even Tesla alone exceeds our capacity. So we've got to attract talent to the region. We've got to be able to pull the university graduates out. Rather than let them go somewhere else, pull them into jobs here. In the past, that was all they could do, graduate and go somewhere else. Now they graduate, that's 4,000, pull them into our workforce here and really help us as we try to solve this workforce issue. In additionally, we have 45,000 adults without a high school equivalency or a high school degree right now. They can't even go to the community college without that equivalency. If we can help solve that problem, and there are programs in place we're trying to get up and running and supported to get some of that workforce up a notch so that they have the equivalency so they can go to the technical colleges and get the skills to then go into some of the jobs that we're bringing to the region, we can help solve some of this workforce challenge. You may have seen the Burning Man billboards. This is just a subset of what we're trying to do to get the talent traveling through the region to realize there are great jobs here. And again, this is part of our Rethink Reno campaign. How do we get people in the region for other reasons to think about Reno as a place to work, as a place to raise a family? So it's going to take us a while. This is a long-term push, but these are just a couple that we had up. And in fact, we had several of our team members out at Burning Man talking to people about, have you thought about working in Reno? And in most cases, the answer is no. And then after a conversation, they moved the needle. Well, maybe I'll take a look at it. Because the reality is, it's pretty much unaffordable in the Bay Area and others if you're trying to raise a family, unless you're super rich. I mentioned the attraction campaign, a lot of things we're trying to do there, but at the end of the day, we're trying to attract talent to the region to help us fill a lot of the jobs that we're bringing and expecting to bring in the near future. We do have campaigns. We're going to put some marketing into this and see what we can do. Finally, the entrepreneurial side, we're excited about where we're going on the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're continuing to see more and more activity in that ecosystem. The university's more involved. We've got a lot of different agencies and groups. In fact, we just received some significant funding that'll be announced for some of our startups that are actually getting money from outside the region, something that never happened before. In the past, the startups we had here had to go to the money. Now we actually have money coming here. If we can keep that up, if we can accelerate that, we're going to be able to grow some real businesses here. Of course, we've gotten some recognition nationally for our success in the growth of the ecosystem. The EPIC report we talked about before, we continue to move forward on the EPIC report. These numbers, while we're on track for job growth, we're probably lagging on the population side on a straight line perspective, but that really is because Tesla and Switch and others have not even started hiring yet. As that happens, we expect the population actuals to start catching up. But here's where we are on the jobs piece. And again, we do expect a pretty good bump on this as Panasonic and Tesla are both aggressively hiring and will be doing so in the next 12 to 18 months, along with all the other companies that we've announced recently. So challenges, I mean, I think most of you know there are challenges associated with growth, huge opportunities, but our workforce piece is something that we're lagging behind. There's still an attitude of, well, let's not jump in because it's going to bust. And that just isn't the case. In fact, that's contrary to the mindset we need to have, because we need to get out in front of this problem. If we don't bring supply up with demand, because demand is up here and it's creeping up, and here's supply. If we don't get that supply up, the housing prices will continue to escalate. If we can get them close, that'll level off the housing prices and keep it more affordable. So that's a challenge we're working on. We have a lot of private investment coming in the region to help us there. We talked about workforce, the downtowns, revitalization, but I added connections there because there's a fairly short distance between the two downtowns. And we're trying to work 4th Street at least to some degree as a beer alley. To be able to connect the downtowns at some point, I think would be a very positive step. And then you take that right turn and shoot up to the university, and you have a real opportunity to connect the region and the energy of the millennials and those downtown. And then finally, school infrastructure funding. You know, the WC1 campaign is up and running. It's a little bit of an uphill climb, but we're making great progress, and we're pretty excited by the energy we're getting across the community. So that's a quick down and dirty, and I offer myself up for any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Mike, I have a question. What's the minimum wage you go after when these new employers coming in? Is there a minimum wage?
Well, if they get incentives, they got to have the minimum wage of the region, which is almost $21 an hour.
Okay.
So they pretty much don't get incentives unless they're at 75 to 80% of that. They get a reduced incentive. So you're talking about $17 to $18 an hour for logistics, which, oh, by the way, not that long ago, they were paying $10, $12, $13 an hour. Now, if you get any incentive, they have to be up in the 17 range. But most incentives don't even kick in until 21.
Okay, good. Good to know. Ms. Ratty.
Really just two comments. First of all, Mike, thank you so much for your support on WC1, and we're doing everything we can to get that passed, but I just want to emphasize again that that's a significant issue for us and could be a deal breaker, I think, if we don't get that passed. The other piece I just wanted to highlight, I've been having a lot of community conversations recently, and I wanted to highlight on the workforce development. We seem to be really, really good at creating programs, and then we always seem to drop the ball on doing outreach to some of the neighborhoods and populations that we need to reach to get into those programs. And particularly when you mention the folks who don't have a GED today, or need some training, some remedial training to get to the place where that they can participate in this wonderful growth that we're experiencing. I just hope that as we're in those forums that we're really looking at how do we do the outreach, how do we connect with those communities so that we don't just build the program, but we actually get people who live here in those programs. So I just wanted to put that on the table as well. And then finally, I say this every time you come, I'm still concerned with the resource level that local governments have to be able to keep up with the growth. And we've got a tax structure problem. I know you know this, but I continue to want to put it on the record because until we figure out how we can keep revenue for schools and local government keep track of this growth, we're going to have another problem. So thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Ms. Bybee?
Just thank you, Mike, to you and to your team. Continued excitement every time you have another announcement, and looking at the broad base of companies and industries coming here. And I think that's what's making our growth right now so exciting, is that it's creating a broader base for us, economic base, where in years past when it was tourism, gaming and tourism predominantly, and we were subject to all of those factors that we saw the decline with Indian gaming and with the economy. And so what's exciting for me, and as I talk to people and supporting WC1 for the school bond and how important that is to economic development, is that these companies are coming in and giving us a really broad base and a stability that makes it not a boom and bust that we're looking at, but I think a very firm foundation for true growth and growth of good paying jobs. And so we need the workforce and the education to fill those jobs, but it's a win-win for everyone. There are more jobs, better paying jobs, places for our kids out of high school or the university to find work and good work, as well as the people we bring in. It benefits the people of this community. So excited and willing to work. We obviously have the challenges of how we keep up with that economic growth, but it's a good problem to have compared to the recession. So I'd much rather deal with that, but kudos to you and to your staff for the work that you guys do. I think it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And diversity is the key. We have really a very diverse selection of companies coming to the region. It's kind of fun to be at some of the press conferences. I know many of you join us for that, and I appreciate you for doing that. Welcoming these companies is exciting, and we love it, but that diversity is critically important. And when we talk about sustainable funding for government, the sales tax revenue for the city is up and will continue to be up through this growth period, but property taxes are the problem. And so at some point, I've messaged as much as possible, but to have real estate depreciate is just not sustainable for local government or for schools. So at some point, I would think the state can figure that one out.
Mr. Lawson.
And along those lines, we're going to need your help too, because it just makes no sense, our tax system, that you built a house in 1950 and that house retains those 1950 taxes forever. Even though you bought it for $35,000 in 1950, it's worth $350,000 today. You're paying 1950 taxes. The city cannot keep up. We can't even adjust for inflation with that kind of a rate, much less the kind of growth that we're expecting. So it's something that needs to get changed at the state. Don't raise everyone's taxes. I'm just saying, if you sell your house, the new person pays the new tax basis. If you stay in your house, you continue to pay the 1950s taxes for as long as you stay there.
Reset on sale. It's just not that
Exactly.
hard.
It's a simple concept, and it would help the cities out tremendously, because there will come a point where we can't afford police and firemen anymore. We just can't keep up with the wages, the cost of living increases, just the upkeep on the stations and the equipment. So it's a big problem. I know you're aware of it, but I think this is a good time for me to get on my soapbox for a minute and push that again. Thank
I
you.
absolutely agree also. Mike, is maybe, and I know you're not on the school board, but is tech high schools, is that an answer for some of these kids that are not going to college and they can learn a trade?
Well, you're hitting one of my pet peeves there, and that is that the vast majority of Nevada kids will not get four-year degrees, over 80%. So, and yet, we have jobs for them here that are going to pay more than a teacher would get paid.
Right.
A lot more in some cases. So our system tends to be focused towards everyone getting a college degree, which is wonderful. But the reality is, a lot of those jobs are available for the Nevadans that won't get those four-year degrees, and they'll get paid in the manufacturing sector $60,000, $80,000 a year.
Yeah.
So there are those technical school solutions that I know the school district and the community college are working closely on as we continue to expand those programs.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, really. I have for a couple of years. Any more questions or comments? Mike, thanks for your report. It's always good to hear from you, and especially when it's good news like this, and you and your staff are doing a wonderful job. Keep staying busy, though, would you?
Even if it's bad news. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public hearing and action items. 10.1, public hearing, consideration and possible approval of a request from Gurr Family Trust to the City of Sparks for abandonment of an alleyway situated to the north of Glendale Avenue. What do you call them, speed hump? What's that?
Did you get a nasty phone call from my neighbor yet, John?
No, not yet.
You will.
Okay.
Good.
No, I don't have any. I'll do it on every item. We like to finish these meetings on the same day we start them.
I can't find it, Teresa. I'm sorry.
There we go.
Oh,
You-
that's what your job is.
You ruined our momentum.
Traffic control.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. The item before you is a request from the Gurr Family Trust. They are requesting that we abandon a portion of, or the alley between Glendale and Shaper, Rock Boulevard and 16th Street. We have gone through and we've received a legal description of the abandonment. We have reviewed that and have found it acceptable. All the owners abutting the alley have been notified. In this case, it's all of, Gurr owns all the property on either side of the alley. We went out and published in the Reno Gazette-Journal for this meeting today. And staff finds that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed abandonment and recommends approval.
Okay, is that it?
That is it.
Questions or comments for John? Mr. Lawson?
John, do we have an easement down that alleyway? Do we have utilities we need to worry about?
Yeah, we will reserve an easement with regards to the utilities, and when the property is developed, then those utilities will be addressed.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open up the public. Anybody wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson?
Okay. I move to approve the request from the Gurr Family Trust to the City of Sparks for the abandonment of an alleyway as outlined by staff. Where's Andy at? That's who you write a motion, Andy.
Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Julie's not here. Okay, it passes unanimously with those at the dais. Okay, moving on to 10.2. Consideration of possible approval of request from the City of Sparks Redevelopment Agency to the City of Sparks for the abandonment of the northerly portion of the BC Alloway situated west of Victorian Square Circle and public right-of-way located at the southwest corner of Victorian Plaza Circle and Avenue of the Oaks.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. John Erickson, City Engineer for the record. On the exhibit that should be up, I've got it up here.
Yeah, you're done.
Where this abandonment is being requested is a portion of the BC Alley, which is the area on the bottom portion of the exhibit, and then there's a small section of right-of-way there in the northeast corner, there at Victorian Plaza Circle and Avenue of the Oaks. We went through all the proper notifications with regards to notifying all the adjacent property owners, as well as notifying in the Reno Gazette Journal. Staff finds that the public will not be materially injured by the proposed abandonments and recommends approval. Before you act on this, I have been asked by the representative of Kenneth C. Cummings, Inc., which is the Dottie's parcel, to read this email into the record. This is, John, this is to confirm our earlier conversation that Kenneth C. Cummings, Inc. does not object to the proposed abandonment on the portion of Avenue of the Oaks, provided that proposed traffic flows adjustments will not negatively affect any deliveries to our building located at 1144 Victorian Avenue, and that's Dottie's.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee?
I move to approve the request from the City of Sparks Redevelopment Agency to the City of Sparks for the abandonment of a portion of alleyway and right-of-way as outlined by staff.
Ms. Ratty?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes 4-1. Mr. Schmidt voting no. Okay, 10.3. Public hearing, consideration of possible approval of Bill number 2712, creating an ordinance authorizing the issuance by the City of Sparks, Nevada of its general obligation limited tax sewer refunding bond, additionally secured by pledged revenue series 2016B in the principal amount of $27,099,690.98. Mr.
98 cents.
98 cents. Mr. Cronk.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'm here today before you to propose an ordinance that would hopefully, well, essentially save the city money. We have an opportunity to refinance the outstanding sewer bonds that are currently held at the state of Nevada through the State Revolving Fund loan program. In fact, all of our sewer bonds that have been issued over several years, many years now, have all been held there. So they have recently had a policy change which allowed us to lower the interest rate. We've obtained approval from the Treasurer's Office, the State Treasurer's Office, which by the bond ordinances we have to obtain their approval to refinance these. They recently had, like I said, a policy change which allowed us to refinance at a quite a bit lower interest rate. Even though interest rates have been spiking a bit in the last few days, I'll go on my soapbox here and hope the Fed at one point will stop talking and let the market do what it's going to do. But we're still looking at a low interest rate. So we currently have an average outstanding of about 2.86 on our loans, and we're looking at an interest rate of about 1.25%. So even though the rates have been going up a little bit, it's still historically very low, and this is a good opportunity. We're looking at now generating net present value savings of about $1.9 million. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, any questions or comments? You know, Jeff, I have one. My understanding is this will not increase the amount of time. We're going to pay it off the same amount of time, but save $2 million.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Schmidt.
Can we go over how that works?
Yeah, it's actually a requirement of the state made from us. We're keeping the same final maturity date, which is going to be 2029. However, let me back up. We have several outstanding bonds. There are actually 8 outstanding bonds. We're going to consolidate this into one. However, the state, for their funding process, still wanted our principal maturities to follow the original maturity plan, if you will. So we're actually going to generate quite a bit of the savings are going to come up front because a lot of our bonds are coming due sooner rather than later. So the principal amounts that will actually be paid will be happening again sooner than later, but the final maturity of this issuance is still going to happen in 2029. So I hope that makes sense. It doesn't to me either, from the standpoint.
It sounds like it's a government program.
It is a government program.
So, you know,
and that followed their funding model requirements.
So I have $2 million that are going to be paid off in 2017 on a bond. What does that bond mean today, and what you're going to do to it?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand your question.
Okay, you have a bond that matures in 2017.
Just a general bond you're talking about, just in general? Yeah.
Is that portion of the $2 million versus the $28 million still going to be paid off in 2017?
Yes.
And how do you know that? I mean,
well, we have amortization schedules on all our outstanding bonds, and the Treasurer's Office and the SRF loan office folks are keeping that maturity schedule. So we're gonna follow the same maturity schedule that we have right now on the principal. So the difference, though, is going to be the interest that we're actually paying on an annual basis.
So our principal does not change?
Correct.
It's only our interest.
But it's the interest rate that's generated by the new interest rate will change.
And the reason why this concerns me was the fact that in 2007 is when we made a major shift not approved by the council to take and put money from the sewer fund increasing into the old sewer pipes that were supposed to be replacing the city of Sparks, but instead we went to go paying sewer bonds instead of replacing sewer pipes. When do we get back on top of that program? Because you know, that was my understanding, that the sooner we get these other bonds paid on off, the more we can get back onto actually replacing sewer lines instead of paying off sewer bills.
Yeah, that decision's still going to be before you. Nothing that we're approving today will change that decision process, other than the fact that you'll be paying less interest on the current outstanding bonds. If we ever wanted to get in a situation where we wanted to pay off these bonds sooner, which I don't know if I would recommend because the interest rate is so low, but if we wanted to, we would have to, as we would previously, we would still have to ask for the Treasurer's Office approval to do so.
I'm more interested in getting the money that people pay on their sewer bills every quarter going to what we say it's going to go to and not paying past sewer bills.
Mm-hmm. And again, that decision's still before you. Whenever we go through the process of setting the sewer rate study, that's when those decisions are made, because we'll roll the debt service required on these bonds into that analysis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Looking for a motion? Ms. Ratty?
I move to approve Bill Number 2712, creating an ordinance to provide for the issuance of sewer refunding bond series 2016B with a principal amount of $27,099,690,098.
Do we have a second? Ms. Bybee?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, moving on to planning and zoning. Consideration and possible action on Bill 2711 to rezone a site approximately 48,787 square feet That's all I'll read. You can do it, Ian.
That's the next, I'm sorry. Trying to make it. Well, not seeing it on here. No, well, I had one of them up here that I'm going to talk about next, but I don't see the item that needs. Yeah. Should be CM 24. I don't. This is the next one I'm going to work on. But
Did you train under John?
he taught me everything.
I can tell.
We're on pace to have a very fast.
Yeah, this was going stick in the mud.
All right. I've got an aerial of it in here if you need to use the DocuSign again. I've got.
Reno on Wednesday.
All right. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Ian Crittenden, Senior Planner. As you mentioned, this is a rezone request for a property a little over an acre, 1.12 acres in size. It's currently zoned SF40, which is a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size, which is roughly an acre, a little less. And they are requesting a change to SF6, which is a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. This house has been located there according to county records since 1959 and is not part of a recorded subdivision. So that's kind of why it's an odd size compared to the adjacent lots. The current land use for this parcel is LDR, which is low density residential, which supports lots or densities of 3 to 7 units units per acre. The existing zoning is essentially not in conformance with the master plan, which happens in some of these older parts of town as things have changed. This rezone would bring it into conformance with that zoning district and that master plan land use. The adjacent properties are also zoned SF6, which is what this is requiring or requesting, except for the parcels to the northeast. There's a couple pieces here that are SF9, which is a 9,000 square foot minimum lot size. But essentially, in general, the zoning they're requesting is the same or very similar to the zonings that are adjacent to them, and they are all under the same master plan designation. So this would bring this into conformance. That's really the end of my presentation. There's not a lot of moving parts to this zoning. It's pretty straightforward, but I am available for any questions at council.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
Just, Ian, tell me, how many houses do you think you can get on that property? And how are they gonna enter the property?
That's my question.
So they've come in and done a pre-app, which, if you may or may not know, is a process that we make available to people who are looking to develop property, where they can come in and talk to different members of staff, and we can kind of set out, they can say, this is what we want to do, and we can kind of talk to them about the restraints they might have or how they might be able to get there. The original proposal was, hey, we want to cut this up into a few pieces and get, some more houses on here. The real issue is they don't really have access to the back portion of that property. If they were to try to cut it into more than about 2 pieces, they really wouldn't be able to get access to that back part of the L. So the current idea that the applicant has given to us, I mean, we won't know until they submit for lot splits, and what they really are going to try to do is that they want to just split the front 2 pieces off, the pieces that abut Probasco. They want to essentially have 2 parcels there, and then that back piece will stay attached to the main house. And they've had some idea of potentially trying to sell off portions of that to
the adjacent property owner, so it'd become an additional part of their backyard, potentially. That's a potential. What they really want to do is get 2 lots out of what is one now lot, one lot now. Like I said, they did want to or had the idea of splitting it more, but when we started looking at it, they really don't have the ability to get access back there. It just isn't wide enough to put a street and still get usable lots out of it.
Yeah, they'd have to tear down that house.
Yeah, and that's not something they're looking to do at this time.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Anybody wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Any other questions, discussion? Ed, Mr. Lawson?
Let's go ahead and make a motion. Did I find it here? Move to adopt bill number 2711 and approve the rezoning request associated with PCN 16024 to rezone a site approximately 48,000 square feet, 1.1 acres, from SF40 to SF6.
Okay.
Based on the findings Z1 through Z3.
Okay, do we have a second? Ms. Spivey?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Ian. And this one's yours also. Is it 11.2? Yes. Consideration of and possible action on request for tentative and final approvals of an amendment to the Development Standards Handbook for the Pioneer Meadows Plan Development District.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, Ian Crittenden, Senior Planner. This is a request to amend a portion of the regulations that exist within the plan development of Pioneer Meadows. It's specifically a request to reduce the parking requirements in the multifamily designated areas. This map kind of shows where those areas are. It's this piece. There's 3 parcels here, and then actually this parcel is part of the multifamily. It won't really be affected because it's existing, so this really won't have an impact on their parking requirements because they're already built. But these 3 parcels could potentially be impacted by this change. The current parking requirements are 1.5 spaces for every 1 bedroom or studio or efficiency style apartment, and then 1 space per bedroom for 2-bedroom or larger units. The reduced standard that they would like to apply is 1 space for every 1 bedroom, studio, etc., and 1 or 2 parking spaces per 2-bedroom or larger unit.
Say that last one again.
Two parking spaces for every 2-bedroom or larger unit. So essentially, we're losing half a space for every 1 bedroom and 1 space for every 3-bedroom unit, if that makes sense. To look at the impact that this would have is a little bit difficult. Obviously, we know it's a reduction in the parking requirement, and remember, this is a minimum standard. These are going to be the minimum standards for this development. But because some of those projects are not applied for yet, we can't tell you what it'll do to change those because we don't know the unit mix for the new developments. But what we can talk about, and I hope you read and had some understanding of my analysis, and I'm going to try to go through that and explain what I did to look at how does this affect the parking requirements in that area. We took this last parcel here is the Lumina at Pioneer Meadows apartment complex that has been approved through conditional use permit by Planning Commission. We can look at what their unit mix is and how this change would affect them, and then compare it to some other places to see how that compares to what their parking requirements are. So to begin, that planned unit or that conditional use permit was approved with the condition that they would have to meet whatever parking standards were in place when they submitted for building permits. They haven't submitted yet because they proposed less than what was under the current parking requirement because they anticipated this amendment coming in. So under the existing parking requirement, there is the 312 unit Lumina project would require 639 spaces. So that's a little more than 2 units of space in general. Under the amended code that's being asked for today, that same development would require 558 spaces. That's the difference of 81 spaces. The actual project that they submitted had 591 spaces, so there's actually only a difference of 48 in between planned and required, but that's over their minimum requirement. And that's the other part that I wanted to make sure we were aware. This is a minimum requirement. It's still on the developer to figure out what their parking demand is to a certain degree. We also compared it to the Galleria apartments that are going in behind Costco. That was also approved recently, and we said, well, what did they provide, and how does that compare to the same kind of parking requirements? They did a similar thing where they got approved prior to the zoning code being amended, which reduced the parking requirements in multifamily as well. The parking requirement in multifamily for straight zone parcels, for parcels that are just subject to the zoning ordinance, is 1 space per unit. And that's with the understanding that we know that that's low, but we're not telling you that this is our parking study for your project. We're telling you this is the minimum, figure out what you need, and provide what you need for parking. Some places downtown, that's probably plenty. Some places out on the edge, we know that's not enough. But so the Galleria came in and they said, look, we know we're below what the current requirement is, but we gave them a condition, said, hey, you got to meet whatever current when you come in for building permits. We approved that change in the zoning ordinance, and so they came in a little bit lower. Their parking is essentially 1.6 spaces per unit. That parking applied to the Lumina project would provide 499 spaces versus the 558 that this new parking requirement would require. We looked at some other municipalities. We looked at Reno because they're nearby, they're our neighbor. 591 is what they would require, which is higher than what they're providing, but lower than what's currently required. We also looked at Norman, Oklahoma, similarly sized town, similar suburban kind of makeup. They would require 562 spaces. Renton, Washington, again, similar size and location, 419, and San Angelo, Texas, 541. So we can see that the proposed change is in the neighborhood or a little high of the average of the locations we looked at. It's staff's opinion, this is an appropriate adjustment to the parking requirement. This won't cause an undue hardship on the adjacent neighborhoods or anything like that. The amendment of the master plan, or not the master plan, sorry, the amendment of the plan development requires that we go and look at their tentative and final findings that are required. This amendment does not affect any of the tentative requirements. Findings PDA through PDG are not really affected by this change. None of them are impacted. There are a couple that have some impact, like there's an open space one. Reduction in parking means more area for landscaping, which is kind of open space, and so this really doesn't have a negative impact on any of the requirements for those findings. The findings for the final handbook that I will go through, it continues to meet those findings, being that this amendment does not vary the proposed gross residential density. Those are static and won't change by a parking requirement change. It does not vary the proposed ratio of residential to non-residential use. Again, won't affect that. Does not reduce the common open space area. There's no increase in the floor area. There's no increase in the total ground area covered by buildings, nor is there substantial change in the height of buildings, and there's no changes in the final handbook. So Those findings were all able to be made. Planning Commission reviewed this and recommended approval on August 4th, and staff recommends approval as well. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer
we
them.
do have some
The
questions.
applicant is also here.
Okay. Would you like to say something? Mr. Lawson, go ahead and ask your question.
Well, before Ian leaves, I just got some technical questions.
Okay.
So Rolling Meadows Drive, that is a dead-end cul-de-sac? Is that-
Cul-de-sac, correct.
So the houses that are just to the south of that, are they not facing Rolling Meadows? Are they facing south?
They're facing internal to that.
So there would be a block wall or
Or
a fence
fence, yes.
or whatever. So if there was overflow parking, it would be easy for them to get on that street and park.
Yeah, it could be. I believe they could park on that street. I'm not 100% whether
Like I can just,
parking available.
I'm
on it.
expecting,
Yeah.
you know, that I own a boat and I can't find a spot in there, I'm gonna pull my boat out there. I'm thinking, I see it now. And then Wingfield Hills Road, that's gonna continue on and out to the west?
Eventually, yes.
And so will there be an exit entrance onto Wingfield Hills Road out of this project? Or will this cul-de-sac be the only way in and out?
So we have to split these two items. So we used Lumina as an example, but this amendment to the parking requirements isn't specific to Lumina, but eventually Lumina will have an exit that would be able to get to Wingfield Hills when it is developed. There's actually,
Gave me too much information, John. Now I started thinking about this.
Between these two parcels, there's a proposed road that would connect, and they'd be able to go either direction once Wingfield Hills is finished. But I will defer some of your questions to John, who may be able to answer them more specifically.
Councilman Lawson, to answer your question, in the future, Wingfield Hills Road will match up somewhere with, through Kylie and become Lazy Five Parkway. I don't know how we're gonna name the street in the future when we hook them together.
That's what I thought it was. I just wanted to be sure.
And in the current development plans for the apartments that are already underway, the new one, as well as a future subdivision, which is located here on this parcel. We're working with the RTC right now to figure timing and responsibility for construction of that road. It will come in the future, and all of these will connect to it in time.
So there will or will not be Lazy Five or Wingfield Hills Road? Will there be an in-out to the north of these parcels?
Yes.
There will be. Okay. And there will be no on-street parking on Lazy Five?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Just follow up. Will there be allowed on-street parking along Rolling Hills?
Currently, Rolling Hills is a public street, and yes, there is on-street parking allowed.
Is there room on both sides for parking?
We have breakdown lanes on both sides.
Still be able to go and do that? Okay.
If,
And I want to reserve the rest of my questions and after the applicant's representative talks.
Ms. Bybee?
I do have a question on the overflow parking. How much street parking is available? Because I know even two people living in a one-bedroom apartment could have two cars. And so for overflow, is there an overflow lot or on-street parking? And then I'm concerned with you're finding F, the impact on the neighborhood. Would that on-street parking have impact on the neighborhood if you've got not enough parking spots where the units are and people have somewhere, do they have somewhere else to park, and would that impact the neighborhood around it, I guess, is my question.
You want me to answer to my degree? I don't have anything to do with it. Yes, that could be a potential issue. And we understand that. My analysis I went through and looking at those things, I don't believe that we're going to have that level of an overparking issue in these apartments. I could be wrong. I can't foresee the future. It's not a huge reduction in parking from the existing to the proposed, and the parking demand that they're asking for is coming from a survey of parking demands required by, do you remember who they said did that? The apartment housing group went out and did an analysis. What's the demand for parking units in this kind of an area? And that was kind of where those numbers came from.
Okay, but isn't it 81 units? I mean, 81 parking spots less, that's a lot.
Well, yeah, it's
So
81.
that's minimum. At a minimum, they would build that, but they could build more depending
Yeah,
on
and
what they
that's
thought
what's being
demand was.
proposed at the one I use as an example, is they're actually proposing more than what the minimum would require. And that's what we would hope that any developer coming in to do would say, you know, just because this is your minimum number, you need to actually look at what your demand is based on national averages and so forth, and tell us what you're gonna put in there. We just have a minimum that says you can't go below this number. And so, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand, you don't want to just build a lot of parking lots that aren't, you know, full, but also, I also concerned about, are we going to have an overflow of cars and do they have somewhere to go?
Chris Baker, Manhart Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant. I want to make it clear, I actually represent the master developer of Pioneer Meadows. I don't represent the project-specific Lumio that was discussed earlier. I know this gets a little bit muddy anytime you're asking for a reduction in parking. I just want to kind of start at the beginning. Remember, the base parking that we're talking about was set forth in the original handbook approval, which was done by the master developer. I'm here to tell you they messed up. They put their parking standards too high. If you look in the staff report that Ian put forth and the city code standard now of 1 per unit, they actually put themselves out of the market. And that's the reason those 3 multifamily land uses are actually vacant now. And if you even notice, the other multifamily site is actually developed as single family. What happened here is they missed the mark, honestly. You know, this handbook was approved back in 2005, I believe. And for us to be talking about vacant parcels after one boom, a drop, and then another boom, they've kind of put themselves at a competitive disadvantage with not only other places in the city of Sparks, but their region. And if you look at ITE standard is maybe what you were talking about, that's the parking generation standard by Institute of Transportation Engineers. They missed the mark by almost a stall per unit. The demand is actually only 1.2 per multifamily unit for a low-rise suburban market, and the actual supply is 1.4. They're over 2. So when you're comparing, when you're saying they're going to be, you know, low 81 spots, they were actually high, you know, over 100. So, you know, it's got to be apples to apples. You know, if you look in the chart, we're still, the Lumia project is still providing 591, which is at or more than anywhere in the region. So I just want to make sure we talk about the base and give you a little bit of history of why we're here, you know.
Okay, any further questions? I do have one. I would imagine if you wanted to rent me an apartment and there wasn't enough parking spaces, that I might go somewhere else, or park on the streets. And I'm dealing with this on Modena with the apartments up off North DeAndrea, where people are parking on the street and those folks scream and yell all the time about that. And plus, I thought that we had a standard for a long cul-de-sac like that. There had to be an emergency exit in there somewhere. If something happens in there, there's only one way out. Just saying.
They're all just looking at these.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you are exactly right.
Thank you, sir.
As part of the conditions for the first project, they work with the fire marshal. What will someday become Wingfield Hills Road will be based up, and we'll have emergency access on it out the back of these apartments.
Okay. So at the back of those apartments by the lake, right by the lake?
This way.
Right there,
That's
okay.
where I'm at, yeah.
Okay. I was right. Holy mackerel. Okay. Yeah, finally, it took 10 years. All right, that's the questions I have. Mr. Schmidt.
Well, they say blind squirrel finds an acorn every
I know.
now and then.
Sometimes we
so
get lucky.
You know,
But they don't hesitate jumping all over me, do they?
I, in principle, don't have a whole lot of problems with this because I think I agree with the concept that if you don't have parking spaces, you can't rent your unit. But you never have a parking problem until you're the one trying to get the parking space. You know, when you're going to go visit somebody in that area, There is no parking spaces there because they're all numbered for a unit. And we all got this booting company all on speed dial that as soon as you park in the wrong place, the booting company comes on out and tags your vehicle. So there never is a parking problem until you have a parking problem, until you want one or people start complaining about it, and then when we end up getting the phone calls because we planned something. Now, my question comes down to with the project, and let me correct me if I'm wrong, 1 out of the 3 parcels we've already approved, correct? It's not 2 out of 3. I thought 2 out of 3 we approved, but we just did 1 right now?
One has been approved through conditional use, the one on the far west, for multifamily. The project, or the parcel on the far east is actually in for tentative map now, so you'll be seeing that in the next couple of months. Single family, right? Yes, single family. They had a couple of variations on their multifamily, and that one had an availability to go single family too.
So when we approved, or the planning commission approved that one project, you call it Lumina, we required 639 parking spaces.
That's what the current handbook requires.
Developer can't do that. Developer submitted a project that it can't be done based upon our current codes and regulations. So the developer, through the owner of the project, is coming back and saying we want relief. So here's where I'm going with this, is that if you're going to sit down and arbitrarily say that this is different than the rest of the city of Sparks, why aren't we going a parking ordinance for the entire city of Sparks to cover everything?
The city of Sparks parking ordinance has been amended
to
1 space per unit.
Okay, and I'll cover that point in just a minute. Okay. Why we did that?
Okay.
So, but we also have per handbook, based upon that project, what we think is going to be there, and the owners use paid consultants whether they didn't do their job or not. We have city staff that use standards, because I can tell you, in my 16 years of city council, almost 16 years, and 6 years of planning commission, that we've always been taught that parking spaces are predominantly dominant upon the farthest from the inner core circle. 1-to-1 can be in an inner core circle where you have an option to have public transportation. I'm not even sure that 1.6 is going to work out for Galleria Apartments, because there is no public transportation area, and we're another 5 miles plus down the road. There are no options for this community. If you have a parking problem, there are no options but to take public space, i.e. public roads, and go park on them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we had the standards when the developer brought on in. The developer agreed to those standards. And now we're going to go ahead and say, I don't want to do this because I don't get the requirements, so I'm going to go ahead and possibly push this problem onto city property.
Well, the small change, or the small alteration I would make that statement is they did not agree to our standards. They proposed standards, and we accepted them.
When the conditional use permit went into place,
yeah,
they agreed to all standards of the city of Sparks.
No. What I was saying was that when they proposed the parking standards that are in the plan development, they proposed those standards, which is the argument that has been made, is that they proposed them at a level that they could not meet market demand. Their parking demand was so high that they could not move product, right? So they proposed a parking standard in 2000, which is when the handbook was originally proposed, that was beyond what the market could carry for the parking demand in those parking.
I don't know. I'm not sure where my position, the people I met were the buyers. I never met with the owner of the property. I met with the buyers, and the buyers have stated that they were buying the property based upon city code. That's why they went into the planning commission review. They had all full knowledge of city codes, and they were buying the property based upon that. You're telling me that it's the seller that is having the issue with this because they couldn't market the property. Is that property changed hands?
I don't know if that property is sold yet or not.
Who owns that property?
DBJ.
Is that who owns the whole master site?
Owns the whole thing.
They haven't transferred property yet? Now, the off button is off, but I don't know why it didn't. My apologies. At least I made it on time to the meeting.
First time in 10 years, 8 years.
You know, I'm just saying that I think that, you know, we need to step back here and say, what are we doing, you know, with this whole thing? Is staff recommending a permanent change for all outside of RTC served areas that we're going to go with this level parking?
All staff is recommending is that the amendment to their parking requirements in Pioneer Meadows, this reduction we feel is appropriate.
And again, for the record, Chris Baker, all that would do is bring it in consistent with everything else in the region, with or without RTC service.
I don't have enough facts in front of me to say that that is consistent or not. To say that we in 2005, you're saying the city council made a mistake.
No.
By approving this
I'm not saying
project
that.
with the parking requirements on it, that we overstated what the requirements were needed in 2005, that is not the requirements today. And I contend that people are more car users today than they were in 2005, especially in this area where people have to drive 15 miles just to get to a freeway.
For the record, again, I'm not saying the city council did that. I'm saying the developer themselves did that. They proposed the standard.
Okay, is it, Mr.? Okay, any other questions? Mr. Lawson?
So, I mean, the way for me, you have to drive out of here. So, is there a compromise somewhere? Is there something in between that, you know, the 650 versus the 550? Is there a compromise in there that works for everyone, or the reduced rate was under 500, right?
No, the reduced was 558 versus the 639, which is what the current requires.
And then if we change it to 1 per unit, it went down to
312.
Well, yeah, if it were 1 per unit, which is the standard
So
code
that's
for the
what
city,
312, yeah.
would be 312 spaces.
Do you mind get a little bit of background on where this number came from? You know, obviously, the Lumina project was mentioned, and I think that was just for a reference point. This was proposed, you know, prior to this project coming in, and again, this was market studies by local multifamily builders, by national multifamily builders. We're trying to hit the sweet spot so we can market this property to, again,
And we want
this
you
one's
to
a local
market it.
person. You know, and that sweet spot we found, and it's supported by ITE, parking generation, which is a widely accepted manual, is the sweet spot's there between 1.5 and 2. Actually, the ITE number is 1.4 is the supply, and the actual demand is only 1.2. So we're well above the national standard for suburban areas. And again, what we're just saying is the number of 2+ is excess.
I agree.
Yeah.
So my question is that 1.45, how many parking spots are there?
Well, right now, the way it
Based
breaks
on
down,
this.
it's 1.9. The way it was calculated with the Lumina
At
project is 1.9.
1.5, how many parking spots for the Lumina project? I just needed-
470 or so, I would say.
And that's above the...
468.
And that's still above the standard.
They're proposing 591.
Or 591 was that project, 558 is the standard they're proposing, is what it would require.
So if you came in at 1.5, 468 stalls, the standard that we're proposing with the amendment would actually provide 558. So we're almost 100
I'm
stalls
good
high.
with that. That's all I was getting to. You're confusing me with 1.4
Two
and 500.
new numbers.
Yes, okay. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You just stated this applicant was done before the request for
No,
Luminous
the
came
gathering of the market studies were done beforehand.
No, you said that this application was done before the Luminous study was requested, before the Luminous project was approved, is that right?
It was not done before.
So this
no.
has come after it?
This has come after. This was actually submitted prior to it. It is stalled, honestly.
Can I get a verification this was submitted before that time?
They were submitted very close together. I can't tell you which one was first, but this one did sit for a while because there are some other amendments in Pioneer Meadows that the owner was thinking about, and in subsequent meetings with them, they decided, let's just move forward with this. We don't want to hold Lumina up any longer, because they came in really close together. I couldn't tell you if it was before or after, but they were within a month of each other.
And again, I was not involved with the Lumina project, so I don't know what date they submitted. I just know when it was submitted, which was prior to the approval.
My concern that even goes farther than that now is that we had two competing things going on at the same time at a staff level, and the council was not made aware that this was an issue coming forward. That, you know, your applicant could not meet the parking requirements, and then the same applicant had another competing set of circumstances going on at the same time to reduce those parking requirements.
Well,
It should have been handled both at the same time. We should have been made aware that this was coming
Yeah,
forward.
I can tell you that when the Lumina project went to Planning Commission, that this was already submitted. I don't know if they were submitted at the same time, but they'd both been submitted when it went to Planning Commission, because that was the argument for approving it with less than the approved was, look, we're applying for a change to the parking requirements, and we're gonna provide, you know, this number of spaces, which doesn't meet the existing, but we know that there's an amendment being processed.
So the planning commission approved this with a proposed amendment coming forward that the city council had to vote on.
Yeah, with the condition that you're gonna meet whatever is in place when you apply for the building permit.
And we accepted that?
Yes.
So allowing the planning commission to put a requirement on it that the city council has never even seen yet?
The item that went to the planning commission was a conditional use permit. And so, one of the conditions of approval basically specified that for the record, Armando Ornelas, Assistant Community Services Director. The planning commission approved the conditional use permit with a condition that said that the parking that would be required for the project would be whatever the handbook required at the time of building permit application.
Okay, so that is the planning commission's requirement.
Yes.
That whatever is the time of their conditional use permit, and the owner said yes to that.
Yes, the applicant went forward with the understanding that if this amendment to the handbook was not approved, they would either have to redesign their project to reduce the unit count and therefore be able to comply with the parking standard, or alternatively, redesign the site to be able to provide more parking on the site to meet the whatever the standard in the handbook was.
Because my interview with the owner of that project that was coming forward and the applicant on it, saying there would be absolutely no changes. It was meant to conform to the book. The only thing the plan handbook required, if we had the conditional use permit to go ahead and do it, there would be absolutely no changes to this project. And I said, well, why do we, it almost seemed like immaterial to have a conditional use permit when the applicant's, is willing to go forward with absolutely no changes. And the first I've heard from anybody was today, or when this item came up on my agenda this weekend, that now we've got a parking issue that we need to take care of. And it appears that this has been known along by everybody for a long period of time, that this project was not happening without a change in the plan.
Okay. Is that it, Mr. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other comments right now? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open up to the public. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Looking for a motion on 11.2.
For Mr. Schmidt, if he's not, then I'll make the motion.
I will be abstaining for this item because I have received contradictory information from the developers.
Okay, Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve a request for tentative and final approval of an amendment to the Pioneer Meadows Plan Development Handbook associated with PCN 16017, adopting findings PDA through PDG and the facts supporting those findings is set forth in the staff report. Because the request includes final approval, City Council will not require a bond at this time, as stated in NRS 278A-490.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. It passes 4-1. Mr. Schmidt abstains. Thank you. Okay, I will open up the public comment period again. Anybody in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for comments from City Council and City Manager. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I have an announcement. The following committee appointments are available. Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, 1 member for a 2-year term. The qualifications require that the 1 member has both performing arts background and arts advocacy experience. Persons interested in serving on this committee should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. You would click on City Services on the webpage, then click on Volunteering, Get Involved, and then click on Fill Out a City of Sparks Volunteer Application. Applications will be accepted until the close of business on Friday, September 30th of 2016.
Thank you. Any other comments? I do have a comment. Some of you know that I'm heavily involved in Nevada Veterans Memorial, and on the 22nd of September, we do have a fundraiser dinner at the Silver Legacy. We hope you can make it there. We've got lots of room, so don't worry about being crowded. So September 22nd at the Silver Legacy. Okay, any other comments? Okay, without objection, we are adjourned.